Welcome to week 8, halfway through the semester. I don't know if you guys are excited or scared, because I don't know what I am, in all honesty. So, scared. Okay. I fully appreciate that. So that's kind of the way it happens. My plan for today is to kind of catch up. I am so sorry about lab last week that it just didn't work out, but between my schedule and Julie's schedule, it just was going to work better for this week. So we will have a guest speaker on Thursday this week, or nope, Wednesday. Our lab is Wednesday this week, and she's going to kind of introduce us to the property that she manages and kind of give us our directives of what she needs help with. And I'm not even 100% sure that I know exactly what she needs yet. So we're going to figure this stuff out together. Okay. So this is very much going to be a group effort, even though everybody is going to individually turn in a partial grazing management plan. And so if there's a really good chance that they're going to look very similar, I'm totally okay with that, because we're going to work through stuff with groups and that type of thing. And then the 5 to 7 best ones I'm going to send to Julie, and she'll use those to implement. So the cool part is that I'm not the only one going to see your grazing plan, which I think is awesome. And it's going to be used for management, because I'm all about doing functional stuff in this class and not just stuff to get a grade and forget about. So, all right. Our first order of business is we're gonna jump through Blackboard really quickly, make sure everybody's on board with what's due this week. And then if you were in group 1 or group 2 last Monday, when we looked at the 5 different species of plants that we find on rangeland, we totally ran out of time for you guys to present, and I am so sorry about that. So that was our purple needlegrass group, which was group 2. We'll ask you to go first. And then group 1 is Medusahead, because Medusahead rolls right into what we're doing this week. And so totally unplanned, but amazing nonetheless. So, and just so nobody gets confused, I do not love Medusahead. It's evil. It's named after like the evil Greek goddess, because it has crazy awns and stuff. And I think she had horns. I don't know. But there's a method to the naming madness, that's for sure. And so it'll be cool to hear kind of your guys' perspective about what morphological and physiological characteristics you came up with last week, and then be able to jump right into Medusahead management. So, and I know that there's a lot of Medusahead at this property that Julie's going to present about on Wednesday as well. So we'll start with Blackboard, and then go back to our group presentations from last week, and probably wrap it up with questions and that type of stuff. All right, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Ooh, is that the right one? Sure, let's go with that. Okay, yes, there we go. All right, so we are in week number 8, way down here, and you guys probably saw the weekly briefing email come out last night. That's how I know I am way busy, is I usually don't forget class stuff, and I just completely forgot to do it Friday and Saturday. And so my apologies if that puts you guys behind this week. Hopefully this week's material is not super hard for you guys. So there's not a lot of video lectures to watch. There is a link to Medusahead management guide here, and this will just take you to a publication that was put together in 2014. It's a peer-reviewed journal publication that's all about what Medusahead is and how it gets managed. And the contributors to this journal article are based here in California for the most part. And so one of our alumni, Josh Davey, who is the Tehama, Glenn, and Colusa County Farm Advisor with Cooperative Extension, he was a really big component of this, of Medusahead management as well. And a really cool aspect of this guide is that Brenda Smith, who I've worked with quite a bit from the Eastern Oregon Research Center up in Burns, she also contributed to this publication. And so you're going to see information about Medusahead invading sagebrush steppe sites, as well as kind of mountain meadows, like up here where our ranch is at in MacArthur Burney area, and then also really large infestation in the Central Valley of California, especially around the foothills. And so this is a really comprehensive guide about Medusahead management. Yes, it's 64 pages long, but a lot of this, the reason that I left it in PDF format is so that you could go in and search for stuff and then read certain sections of it. And so what you're going to end up doing is using that link to answer questions in this assignment. And so this assignment is in Word right now so that you guys can easily format it and that type of stuff. I'm not sure if you're seeing that, but there's about 18 different questions here with the Medusahead management guide. So, all right, any questions about, oops, sorry, I didn't turn my phone off. Any questions about what's due this week? So that assignment, that Medusahead assignment is due end of day on Friday, the 15th. So everybody good with that? Thumbs up. Great. Okay, cool. All right. So group 2 from last week, you guys were purple needlegrass group. So hopefully if you don't recognize the number of your group, you at least recognize the grass. So we can do a couple of different things. I can just turn it over to you to share your screen, or I can pull it up and share on my end. So what would you guys prefer?
I can share.
You can share? Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. Go for it. You should have permission now, Tessa. And if you were in group 1 and you want to get to yours as well, we'll do yours next. Perfect. And whenever you guys are ready.
Okay, so we had purple needlegrass, and the scientific name is Stipropulchra. So here are some pictures of our grass and what the awns look like, and then the environment that it kind of lives in, as far as out on rangeland. If you made the slide, you can go ahead and present.
I didn't make the slide, but I can talk on it.
Okay.
So the growth and form and morphology, it's a perennial grass that produces tufts of built up. It has unbranched stems up to 1 meter tall. It has an extension root system that can reach 20 feet depth into soil, and the grass is more tolerant to drought.
So the lifespan and cycle, it can live for hundreds of years. It's a perennial bunch grass. It takes 3 to 4 weeks to germinate. It forms dense clumps of leaves up to 1 foot tall, and the flower stalks can grow up to 2 feet tall.
So it is native to California. mostly in the coastal hills, valleys, mountain ranges, including Sacramento and Sierra Nevada, foothills, and Baja California. It's a perennial grass that flowers during the spring, and it's gets its name from the pointed fruit, which is purple tinge at a young age. And then a fun fact, in 2004, purple needlegrass became California's state grass, as it's the most widespread native grass in the state.
So that's your little bit of knowledge for Jeopardy in the future, is that the state grass of California is purple needlegrass.
As far as forage value, it has good forage value during the growing season, moderate protein, highly palatable during the growing season, but then in late season becomes dry and is not really palatable anymore. And then that's supposed to say properly managed, not property managed, but and then it must be properly managed because you want those cattle to eat it while it's still growing, and don't let it get dry, because then they won't eat it once it's dry. So for grazing resistance, like we said, it becomes dry once matured. It's no longer palatable. Awns on the plant are sharp and can get caught in the animal's mouth and makes it really unpleasant to eat. And it can burrow into fur and skin. That's how it travels. And that's how it best repopulates. I think that's the end of my slides aren't going anymore, so I think that's the end.
Okay, that sounds good. You can go ahead and stop sharing, Tessa. Thank you for that. Yeah, so purple needlegrass is cool because it's native to California. We don't have very many perennials that are native to California. We don't have a lot of perennial bunch grasses that are native to California. So these grasses, they grow in big clumps together, and the major mass of the clump, the root clump, can actually get to be like about a foot tall. And then the awns and the flowering inflorescence and stuff can actually go another 2 to 3 feet sometimes, depending on where you're at. And so the purple needlegrass is kind of interesting because it's going to be one of those plants that like animals and wildlife species and humans walk around and not over the top of, because it's so densely put together. And so if you're in areas like of the foothills and it's a really, really wet spring and winter, we can actually start seeing some erosion around those bunches. And that gets to be a problem, because the more you erode out the soil, the more the more the roots get exposed. And so our purple needlegrass has a really deep root system for California, but it's not deep compared to some of the grasses that grow in the Midwest and like the tall grass prairie. So probably root length is going to be anywhere between, or root depth is going to be anywhere between 4 and 8 feet on average. Whereas some of the big grasses in the tall grass prairie, they can go down to like anywhere between 10, 15, and 20 feet. And so for our ecosystem, it's really important, and we try to do restorative efforts to replant purple needlegrass because it is adapted to our climate. And it also, in our really tough soils with really shallow hard pans, has the ability to kind of capture water on top of the hard pan. And so it can really provide a different type of soil structure because the roots go a lot deeper. So keep in mind, our annual grasses, like we're going to talk about next with Medusahead, they're only going to occupy like the first top 4 inches of topsoil. But the roots in a perennial grass like purple needlegrass is going to go much, much deeper. It's going to access a different type of water and that type of thing. So we try to do lots of restorative efforts with purple needlegrass. So any questions?
Is that kind of a limiting factor for that grass? Like, because it wants to go so deep in the soil, we have areas within California where it doesn't go that deep, or it's really hard to get deeper than that. So is that why it grows only in those coastal areas because it can only go that deep in the soil.
Yeah, so we'll see some, I like on our range property at Chico State, which is just north of Chico, off of Meridian Road, there's no perennials on that place at all. There's no, I mean, unless they're weeds. And so there's no purple needlegrass there, but that's because the hard pan is really, really hard. And so it can't survive at that point, or very well in the valley areas. Where I see purple needlegrass is kind of in the foothill areas around arroyos and streams. So in areas that, you know, has deeper access to water. And so we have to be pretty strategic about where we try to repopulate and plant purple needlegrass, because we have to try to plant it where it's going to survive. And that's a big issue, like in point of contention with some of the native plant people is there's always been this argument in California about, are annual grasses invasive or are they here because they can survive? And prior to, you know, the influx of settlers in California in the when Native Americans were the primary land managers, you know, was there more purple needlegrass than there is today? Did it get chased out by invasive species and that type of thing? And and I'm not sure we know the answer to that question. There's definitely people that have strong opinions for it, and I just try to stay out of it. So it's one of those fun fights. If you guys have never seen plant geeks get into a fight, it's awesome to watch. You don't want to be in the middle of it, but it's awesome to watch. I mean, it's not like violent, but they will hurt you with words. So, all right, cool. Thank you guys. You just one other thing that I want to touch on. So at the end of your guys' presentation, you had it needs to be properly managed. What do you guys think that means? What does properly managed mean about purple needlegrass? And this is for anybody. So it could be the group, it could be people that are not in the group, etc.
Could it have something to do with how it dries out quickly, like trying to manage the water intake?
Good thought. That definitely goes into it. So any other suggestions?
Maybe trying to control how fast it grows up.
How fast it grows up? This definitely has to do with that. Yeah. So we're definitely adding more to the discussion, which is good. Thanks, Emily. Anyone else?
Maybe like it doesn't like being shaded out by other plants. Like for it to grow, it needs like it doesn't like to be kind of like overcrowded or, you know, by other species of plants.
Yep, and that could be a real issue with in our ecosystem, right? Because we've got oak woodlands and chaparral that could totally shade out the grass for sure. Any other thoughts?
Does it have anything to do with like fire season at all? Like if it's not managed properly, it's something about burning.
Yep. If a fire takes out purple needlegrass, like to the core, it doesn't leave anything above the soil. So there's no photosynthetic material left. And so that will kill the plant for sure. Sometimes you'll see it come back from a low intensity fire but they very rarely come back from wildfire. So, yeah, so with our perennial grasses, it gets into like they just have to be managed differently. And it's because of the way that they grow. So perennial grasses go through periods of green up, usually in the spring, right? When they're adding like new tillers, the green material, it's actively going through photosynthesis. And then we have to manage dormancy. And so a lot of perennial grasses in the sagebrush steppe, it's actually recommended that we graze those perennials during dormancy. And so that's where a lot of winter grazing permits, like in Nevada, Idaho. If you guys were at YCA last week, Garrett Bunyard talked about his area of Nevada that they used, or they primarily do winter grazing. And that's the big reason why, is because you want to graze those perennial grasses when they are dormant. So why would we want to focus on grazing perennial grasses, just general perennial grasses, not just purple needlegrass, during dormancy and not during the spring green up period? What do you think?
Maybe to help replenish the nutrients in the soil for the grass to grow better next time.
Okay, you're on the right track, Steph. Thank you so much for that. So nutrients of the soil, yes. But think about the whole life cycle of the plant. So we graze in dormancy, but what happens during the other parts of the life cycle, like during green up?
Seeds.
Seeds out, right? And so our perennial grasses, even though they don't necessarily reproduce from the seeding aspect of it, like our annual grasses do, it's still important for them to seed out. Okay, and the reason that we need to support when they seed out is because it's at that point in time, the plant is going to have full photosynthetic ability. So it has to produce its own food so that it stores all those good carbohydrates and energy in the root system so it can get through dormancy, right? And then still have enough nutrients to begin to regerminate the following year, so to start the green up period again. So we don't, as grazers, we don't want our animals or wildlife species to be damaging those plants during the vegetative and the reproductive stages, or the green up phase. Okay, so we know that once the plant has gone into dormancy, it's already gone through reproduction. So that foliage material is free to be grazed. Okay, now we don't want to graze the plant down to nothing, right? But we do want to challenge it by pruning back the tillers and stuff in those bunches. And so that's a big reason that we promote dormancy grazing, especially in areas like the Great Basin. But in California, where we have purple needlegrass, what were some reasons that the group presented that dormancy is not the best time, or is not the most desirable time for the animal to actually graze the plant? There was something about awns. There's like microphones coming off and then going back on, and coming off and going back on.
We don't want to say it because we were the group.
Oops,
But
sorry
you
about
had
that.
you have it because it was in the
Yeah.
it was in the thing. So just connect. It's okay. Just connect the dots for us. So why won't our grazers like grazing purple needlegrass during dormancy?
It's not palatable.
Not palatable. What do you mean?
It's you said, like I said, the awns will get like caught in their mouth, and they're very, I can't even remember what that's called. Like they'll dig in like a foxtail does.
Yep. Very, very stickery like, right?
Yes.
So the plant itself gets really big leaves. And those leaves, because it's perennial, have a lot of lignin associated with them. And so lignin is going to be things like, we're going to see high amounts of lignin in wood, right? So in stems, in trees, that type of thing. And so the higher the degree of lignin, the lower degree of palatability for our grazing animals. And so it's going to hurt their mouths. It's going to, cut up probably the inside of their mouths. It's not going to be super desirable. And so our grazers are going to prefer to eat those dead annual grasses or the residual dry matter, which you guys learned about last week as well, over the purple needlegrass. And so my question for you guys is, do we want our grazing animals to even eat purple needlegrass? What do you think?
If we can find a way to get them to eat it at the exact right moment, yes, but
Okay.
it's really hard to.
Yeah. So let me ask a different question. How would we manage if we wanted grazing to happen during the green-up period on purple needlegrass? How could we manage our grazing animals so that they didn't take the entire plant out?
Could you do like
Oh.
rotational grazing where you like only graze on a certain amount of pasture at a time and like not make it all the way down to like stubble, but like that way there's not like you're not eating all the seeds, but you're also not like you're grazing them on the nutritional part of the like when they're producing more nutrients for the animals.
Yep, rotational grazing would absolutely work here, to where you were just targeting, you know, areas that had lots of purple needlegrass populations at certain times, and you were monitoring it and you were moving animals and out there every day. And then could move them off as soon as you reached, or they reached, you know, whatever the desirable grazing levels would be. So that's a really great suggestion, Court. So think about another way that would actually fit California a little bit better. How could we manage grazing of purple needlegrass so that we didn't take the entire plant out? Rotational grazing is absolutely a solution, but there's another way out there. Because let me think about it, or let's think about it this way. Is it feasible in most operations to have somebody monitoring daily the amount of forage in a pasture on rangeland? No, because we're cheap ranchers, right? We have to pay like state regulation fees. Okay, so we don't have time to go be with the cows, even though that's what we want to do. So how could we manage grazing purple needlegrass without being there?
Like timing of grazing, you time it like the season. I don't like.
Yep.
Like the
Timing.
duration, like yeah, you have like a plan for like the duration and what season and how long you're gonna have them out there.
Yep, you are touching all the right things. So all that stuff goes into what I want you guys to focus on. And I'm trying to figure out a better way to describe it without giving it away.
Oh, density.
Density. Okay, this is absolutely related to that. What would we manage if we wanted to increase or decrease density of our grazing animals?
Stalking rate.
Stalking rate. Yeah. So we can manage our purple needlegrass by simply managing our stalking rate. Does that make sense? Cool. I'm totally gearing you up because we're going to go in the next couple of weeks and calculate stalking rates again. So if you guys have been in 294, great. You already have some background. It's going to be a good refresher. And if you haven't been in 294, it's not as scary as it seems. It's going to be fine. All right, cool. Any questions about purple needlegrass? Okay, so purple needlegrass is the California or state grass, I guess we'll call it. It does come up on Jeopardy, just putting that out there. I've seen it a couple of times. So put that one in your back pocket. So let's go to the anti-grass Medusahead. And so group number 1, you guys have the ability to share your screen if you would like, or I can do it. Just let me know. But tell us about Medusahead.
Do you think you could share it? I can't
Sure.
find it. Please.
Yeah, let me find it. Medusahead.
I can pull it up really quick.
I got
think
it.
I have it.
I got
Okay.
it. Yeah. I just have to remember what screen I'm on. Okay, hopefully you guys are seeing it. Just let me know when to move forward.
Okay, so we're group number 1, obviously, and we did our Medusahead, and the scientific name was, I don't even know how to pronounce that first name.
I can't remember either, but there it is. How about that?
Yeah. Okay. And so these are the 2 pictures, and the growth stages of the Medusahead from beginning, and then I guess R4 and then R5. And then the next one is just a picture of Medusahead.
Cool. Nicole, I want to come back to this picture at the end, okay?
Okay.
Well, I guess I'm controlling it, so it's fine. Sorry.
You're good.
So the growth morphology, growth form and morphology, it's a very competitive grass, which is why it like takes over almost everything. And there's like it occurs in such an abundant in such abundance. It's found in areas that receive fall, winter, and spring moisture. It occurs in areas with annual precipitation of about 10 to 40 inches. The height ranges from 8 to 20 inches depending on the site, and sometimes it can get up to 2 feet tall. It produces tillers and very few leaves, and it has a very distinctive flower head. There are usually 2 to 3 spikelets per node, and there's 1 seed per spikelet, which is why it grows so fast and produces so much. The average production is 7.1 seeds per spike, and it has 2 types of awns. They are both flat, and the longer awn contains barbs that point upward. It's a non-native cool season annual grass with that loves full sun to partial shade and partial or dappled shade. So it can really grow in just about any type of season almost. The mesic water, it prefers mesic water. And then it flowers during spring to spring and then late spring to early summer. It's a winter annual, so it germinates in the fall. It undergoes root growth in winter and early spring. And it is actually palatable, but only early on in the life cycle. After it accumulates the silica, when it grows, it becomes very unpalatable, which is why livestock does not like to eat it.
So it's a winter annual grass. It's a very invasive species. The infestations primarily occur in the former sagebrush grass or bunch grass communities that receive 10 to 20 inches of precipitation. It is originally from the Mediterranean region, occurring eastwards in Asia and northwards to Budapest, and it spreads by seed, which is commonly carried by wind and animals.
So it has pretty much little or no forage value with livestock and wildlife species, except, of course, in the very early stages of it.
Awesome.
Medusahead grass usually replaces where cheatgrass has grown, since they grow at different times of the season. And Medusahead has adapted to fire, so the seeds are pretty much fireproof. So whenever it burns, the seeds are salvaged and then it's able to grow again. And it also grows in areas with very little perennial vegetation and high moisture.
I think that's it. Thank you guys. I'm gonna roll back a couple. So very, very, very different morphology and physiology compared to purple needlegrass. So purple needlegrass again was a perennial. Medusahead is an annual, meaning that it goes through germination, vegetation and reproductive stages, and then death all within 1 year. And these grasses actually go through that within about 4 to 5 months in our neck of the woods. And so the you guys mentioned twice that Medusahead was palatable up until a certain stage, and then it started to concentrate silica. And so Medusahead is really palatable up until it gets to what we call the boot stage. So this beginning stage is where we see lots of palatability. And the animals will eat that for the most part. They don't necessarily like it. And even though it hasn't concentrated a ton of silica at this point, if they have a choice between like a forb like vetch or clover, another grass like ripgut brome or side oats grama or something like that, they're going to prefer to eat that rather than Medusahead just because of taste differences. If they're forced to, they'll eat Medusahead at this stage. But once these awns start protruding out of the inflorescence, and we start seeing not only the seed head emerge, but also the awns on top of the seed head, they're a little bit hard to see. Like these awns are these little finger-like structures here. The seed is actually the dark green area here. Once we start seeing that emerge from the inflorescence, the animals don't like it. So we call that the boot stage, because the way that that seed and that awn are oriented looks like a boot. And so once Medusahead is in the boot stage, animals typically won't choose it at all. And that's when it starts really accumulating silica. And it's at this point in time that that plant is in the vegetative stage. So it's actively growing. Once it starts seeding out, that means that that is as tall as that grass tiller is going to get. And so then it's going to put its energy towards producing the seed head off of the inflorescence. And then at that point in time, it really starts concentrating silica. So it'll pull silica out of the soil and into the rest of the plant. And so it tastes very bitter. It's definitely not on the top of the list for the animal. And then they will eat Medusahead again after it dies and goes into residual dry matter. But you guys did a good job describing the major issues with Medusahead. So the way that it reproduces, because its seed is essentially fireproof, if a fire goes through a certain area, regardless of the intensity of the fire, it won't actually denature the DNA in the seed heads, and it allows it to survive that fire and then regerminate again. And so that's why we're seeing Medusahead and cheatgrass infestation in areas where there shouldn't be annual grasses like sagebrush steppe. So really quickly, guys, for those of you that have been around pastures, have horses, cattle, sheep, goats, whatever, what does this grass look like to you?
Foxtail.
It does look like foxtail. Yep. So it is a distant relative to foxtail barley. And so foxtails, we hate them, right? If they're dried and get in our pets' paws or eyes or get snuffed up and cost us lots of money at the vet office. But while foxtail barley is growing, it's actually a really good annual grass for our ruminant species. Once it heads out though, it can still be eaten as residual dry matter, and it has way more value and more palatability compared to Medusahead. So it's really important that you notice distinct differences between Medusahead and foxtail barley out in a pasture. And so foxtail barley is going to have awns that are straight, whereas Medusahead has longer awns that have a little bit of a curl to them at the top. And so those are just some things to kind of look out for. Awesome. Great job, guys. Thank you to groups 1 and 2 for rolling through their plans and stuff again. And so this really primes us to learn more about Medusahead. And the reason that we're spending a week on Medusahead is because it's a huge, huge problem. I'm not sure we can manage it well through grazing at all. I think we're going to need to use grazing plus a couple of different types of other management, whether it's chemical, mechanical, etc., to actually manage it. So I know that Julie is probably going to mention it during her presentation on Wednesday in lab. And so it'll be interesting to see what questions you guys come up with from her. So if you have a chance, please try to start that assignment before Wednesday. So we have a little bit more knowledge and can ask Julie some really good questions about what she specifically is looking for if Medusahead comes up as one of her directives. So awesome. That's all I got for you guys. So feel free, I'm going to stay on. I can answer any questions that you may have. And if you guys need to bounce, that's totally fine. I will see you on Wednesday for lab.
Easy.
See ya.